I like that Tree Living likes big hockey players. It's way better than getting a bunch of Versteegs, you know? Like, you don't need a bunch of those. You just need like a couple of those guys. Anyways, Kris Versteeg, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, creator of the CLEVR app, CLEVR Leagues, partners with Quench, which I'm drinking right now. It's really good. What's up, brother? How we doing? You agree? You can't have too many of you on a team.
Yeah, too many Stanley Cups is not a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, and hey, I want to start with this, JD.
Yeah.
Every time you look at Stolars, I want you to think of me.
Why?
In 2012, Kris Versteeg was traded from the Philadelphia Flyers to the Florida Panthers for a second and third round draft pick, previously for a first and third from Toronto, as you know.
Yep.
And guess who they took? The Philadelphia Flyers with the second round draft pick.
Yeah.
Anthony Stolars.
It's all about you. It's all about you.
Last night, watching Stolars play great, every time I want Leaf fans to think of me and that trade and what I did for this organization. When he plays bad, please don't think of me.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's fair. Okay, what'd you think about him? He looks good, right? Like,
dude, he's a big guy. Yeah. He's solid. He's always kind of done his role really well from, looking back at everywhere he's been. Like you said, he comes out, he challenges, he moves well. I really liked him last night.
Yeah, same. Okay, so the other guy, though, and we'll get to some of the game stuff and some of the other things, but Joe Woll has really struggled to stay on the ice in his career. Like, it's pretty well known at this point how he gets hurt every single year. He just struggles to stay healthy, and he's young, too. That's the problem, is like this isn't an aged player who has kind of broken down over a long career. He's at the very beginning of a contract. What is it like when you're on a team with injury-prone guys? And I know that you struggled with them later in your career as well, but just does it get frustrating to the group? How difficult is it for you as the player when things continue to crop up? Like, what is your level of concern with this from just the weight of it to everyone and the player himself?
Well, as a player, when it's one of your key guys and they keep going down, obviously as a group who's expecting to win a Stanley Cup or is expecting to get there, it definitely bleeds throughout the team. So first off, you feel for your teammate because you know what they're going through. And then secondarily, it's the energy that it could feed throughout the team. So definitely the guys think about it. Yeah. Where I think it really affects it is the management group. They put so much time, effort, and thought into who their guys need to be. And then a guy who's injury prone, who gets hurt at the start of the year, has got to be driving them absolutely insane right now. But as players, you rally around it. Not only that, Stolars rallies around it. The backup goalie rallies around it. So I think they can let it go a lot faster than the management group can, because there's nothing they can do about it. But the players early on, obviously they're going to feel bad for their teammate, and they're thinking about their end goal possibly with it. But for a player, always, once you see someone go down, the best players in the world, the NHL guys, they all want to step up and replace that. So I think if it starts to become a problem, if he keeps getting hurt and Stolars isn't playing well, and whoever they keep bringing up, or if they have to bring someone in doesn't play well, that's obviously going to affect a group probably mid-season or at the end of the season. But at the moment, as a player, you see a guy get hurt, that's now your chance to step up and do it. So, you feel bad for him at the start, but now it's your time to step up. Yeah,
it's just it's annoying for this team, and I think for the fan base, too, because last night was just so familiar, or yesterday was so familiar. It's like, okay, Joe Woll is hurt. That's what happened to you in Game 7. And honestly, goalie stuff for this team has been weird for a while now. Basically since the pandemic season when Freddie Anderson lost his job and Jack Campbell got hot. But then after that, it was just, it's the roller coaster ride. You brought in Mrazek. That was a disaster. You had Samsonov with the ups and the downs of last season. And finally, it looks like you kind of are set in the crease and you can be optimistic in the crease. And then that ends up happening. They have another night where they outplay a team. They outshoot a team. They can't score a goal. It's a little passive. The power play doesn't work out. The lines are the same. And you're somebody who last year our big point of discussion was they got to get more guys involved. They got to have other guys feel like they're a real meaningful part of the team. And that was one of Keefe's downfalls. And it's frankly, it wasn't even just a Sheldon Keefe thing. It's been an organizational thing. And I think that the guys on Kipper and Board call them Team A and Team B, where it's, hey, you got the stars and they're the core, and then you got everybody else on the team, and it's essentially two different units. Berube comes in, and the thought is he's going to get everybody involved, and it's going to be about accountability, and that is going to be the calling card of this team. And again, it's the first game of the season, but they do go with the same lines. They talk about Nylander at center throughout the offseason. They don't even give it a real meaningful shot. It actually turns out to be the exact same as the year prior, where he gets, I think, a preseason game and a few practices, and then all of a sudden he's back on the wing. What do you think of the Leafs going back to essentially the same top six, the Nylander, Tavares, Domi thing, Nyes, Matthews, and Marner, and then, going heavy on that first power play unit, despite kind of showing a little bit more of a 50-50 split with the ice time on the power play?
I'm just starting to think it's the ownership group who hands down the player cards, and those are the lines they need to see, because this is getting ridiculous. It's Groundhog Day, year after year, game after game, and I'm not saying to panic right now. I'm not saying this is like what it's going to be, but exactly what we said at the end of last year is the exact same thing that they come into this season with. Nothing's changed. I understand giving Matthews a guy to play with. I'm totally fine with it being Marner or Nylander, but you need to spread out the depth. You need to get other lines. Yeah, you didn't score a goal all game, but you're also not creating any mismatches on a third line to help give them some offense. You didn't change the power play. You loaded up 5 guys on a power play. You don't create 2 units that are going to have to compete against each other. You just power play 1 unit. I know Savard comes in, and then obviously he looks at what happened last year, and they had some good power play success. But they're not building a power play success for the regular season. They're building it for the playoffs. They need to get 2 units going. They need to get 3 lines scoring. They need to get everyone involved. So it was just watching last night's game again to me. It was just Groundhog Day of last year. Not so much structurally or how they were playing. You could see they were trying to play a little bit more physical, a little bit more straight ahead hockey. First shift of the game, Matthews goes out there. He's bodying guys. He gets off 30 seconds into a shift in the O-zone. That's a lot of things that Berube likes, is building shifts. So if you're 30 seconds in and you hem a team, boom, get off, get your next line on, build a shift, and try to score with your second line, right? Don't be so selfish, extend your shifts, and then try to score at the minute mark and then get scored against later on because you're on too long. So you could see a lot of those things were there that Craig's probably going to try to build into the team. But personnel-wise, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I just don't understand why they don't try to spread out the depth. It's not going to work at the start. You might have Marner on the third line or Nylander on the third line. These are things that are going to take time to build, but you got to start to put these foundational blocks in place now, because are you just going to go power all year again and then maybe try it for 5 games and then go back power and then try and then, oh, boom, playoffs. Oh, now we got to spread out our team and all of a sudden we're going to win. So those are the things. I'm not saying panic now.
No one
I'm
is
not
thinking.
saying no, but it's just frustrating to see that nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Like Riley's still running the first power play. You bring in Ekman Larson, just stuff like that, right? Like Ekman Larson, besides his breakaway, I don't know what that was, and it was one of the weirder breakaways I've ever seen.
I actually thought about you during that breakaway, not because that was what you would do. I thought about, like, you've got your CLEVR Super League, and I thought, what level of, like, what age group where you're watching it and a kid does that, and then you go, what was that? Like, if they're in Bantam, no way, right? Like, Pee-wee is the last level where you do that and then be like, hey, whatever you tried, get off the ice. You're not good.
I love OEL. He's a great dude, too, but it was looking like he was opening up for a one-timer on the dot on the breakaway. But the thing is, like, get OEL on the top unit. He's what have I always talked about from the quarterback? Creating angles, creating movement, finding options. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind if OEL's on the second unit, but then you got to get Nylander and Marner on that unit, or you got to get, you just got to get 2 units involved. You got to make sure they're going out for their minute. They're getting in the game. That gets a Robertson if he's on the second unit involved with a Nylander and an OEL or someone like that. So for me, it's just nothing changed. That game. And if that's the way it's going to be going forward, I'm like, who's making these lineups? Because it's been 8 years of the same thing. So is it management going into the boardroom and they're like, Craig, yeah, we love you and all, but here's who you got to play. That's it, period. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it's just annoying to see game one. It's the same thing as it was in playoffs.
So here's my thought on it. Is this something where they're trying to learn Berube hockey and he tries to just simplify it for them by giving them guys that are more familiar in more familiar roles? Like, instead of trotting Nylander out there at center, just say, hey, go play the wing with Tavares. It's something that you've done before. Like, how long into a new coach's tenure?
That's comfortable. They're already comfortable in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, every single guy who played last night is comfortable in the situation. I'm not saying the role side shouldn't be dedicated. Like, if Craig's gone to like a Lorentz or a Nylander or a Matthew or any of them and said, hey, we need you to be dialed in, sure, but line-wise, they're comfortable in those lines.
Yeah.
They've never been changed, really, right? So, yeah, I guess there's that, but it's like you got to make them uncomfortable. You got to get them out of this little comfort of, I'm always going to be with this guy no matter what, right? You got to make them, what do we say in the playoffs? Marner's not going. Put him on the third line. Make him uncomfortable. If Nylander's like he was at times last night, put him on the third line. Sit him down, right? Make him miss a shift. Make them uncomfortable. That's what you're there to do, is create inner competition within the team, spread out the lines, try to get them uncomfortable in different situations, see what else works, but not always go. You can always go back to the well if you need.
That's it. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's always there for you. Like, what are you going to use the regular season for? And I got to say that's actually the one thing that I've been, I would say, a little suspect of to start, is they've been preaching all this like competition. And it's clearly there because they started the season with a 28-man roster, right? Like, they're going to have a couple guys come back that make a decent amount of money, and they're going to want spots, and they've got to figure out who they're going to move off of the team and who's going to lose ice time. Like, there's some real questions. Like, Bobby McMahon didn't play last night. This is a guy who produced last season and who management gave a contract extension to. And that's with Yarncroke out of the lineup, right? That's with, who am I missing? Oh, Dewar out of the lineup. So those two guys, and then, obviously Hakanpää, but I don't think he's actually competing for a spot. I think he's got one that's essentially promised to him. But either way, so you've got this competition, right? Hey, there's roles, there's up for grabs. But again, it's with Team B. With Team A, you just got the same top six guys back together, except for, now it's Domi that's part of the upperclassmen, right? Like, it's just, it just felt, that part of it felt familiar. And to me, like, you're right, the uncomfortable thing is clear and obvious. So I'm with you. The lines that I want to see are some variation of Tavares with McMahon and Pacioretty. Give me a Nylander line with Robertson and, I don't know, maybe Domi, or maybe put Domi up with the top group and put Nyes down with them.
I like Yarncroc up the middle, too. He's played middle. He played middle for...
He's hurt now, though, right? So it's like, maybe eventually.
I agree. Eventually, and if he works into it.
Yeah.
But, like you can keep Matthews and Marner together. You can put Matthews and Nylander. I do want Matthews with a guy because he's going to have to go against top matchups all the time. But again, get Marner or Nylander on the third line with a Holmberg and with a Domi. Move Pacioretty, you could even put a Lorentz or someone to give some size and speed, or a Dewar with a Tavares and a Robertson. Maybe make that your third line. I don't know. Just think of different things. Even move Nyes down if you have Matthews and Marner, and then you can move maybe like a Bobby McMahon up with a Matthews and Marner, right? Like, you have a lot of different interchangeable pieces. You don't need that third guy on the line to be another top guy. Like, Nyes is a good player. He can carry some pace on a line. He can carry pace on a second or a third line. Domi could move down to a third line and do stuff with, a Nylander, and now you got a Pontus Holmberg who's a little more defensively responsible. There's a lot of things you can do, but you got to do it.
So why doesn't Nylander work at center to you?
Well, again, he's never really been given the runway to do it. It reminds me eerily of Patrick Sharp when I played in Chicago there. Sharp was a winger, a center. He came in as a center, but then he got moved to wing. But then we needed a centerman on the second C in Chicago. Sharpie defensively wasn't great. He's not like the best defensive center, but they put him with Hossa. Host is the best back checker, and he's a well-rounded player. So they kind of protected Sharpie at center with a very good two-way player, and they also made sure the winger on the other side, whether it was the Brouwer or someone else, was very defensively responsible as well. So if you are going to try Nylander up the middle, you got to give it 5-10 games. It's not one game and out. You can't go to a new position and be expected to do what you're expected to do with one game. It's just it's impossible. You need a 5-10 game minimum runway to do that, to get comfortable in the position, to actually see what you got in that guy doing it. Nylander can do it. He's going to have to buy into the defensive side, but then you're also going to have to protect him with two defensively responsible wingers and also a puck hunter. You're going to need a guy who's going to get in on forecheck, and you're also going to need a guy who's going to be a reliable back checker. So you have to be very methodical about who you put him with, but you're also going to have to give him the game runway in order to see what actually you have with Nylander. I think he can do it. It's also a buy-in from him, but it's also being a smart coaching staff and understanding who you're putting him with.
It seems like the buy-in is there from him, though. Like,
but there's no runway for him to do
That's what
it.
I mean, is he came out and put a stamp on it. He said, if I'm going to do this, I want the opportunity to do this. And then they changed it so quickly. And that was the part that I still don't understand. Do I think that he's going to be the world's best centerman? No. Do I think that it's going to take away some of what makes him special on the wing? I do. I think that there will be some growing pains offensively, some growing pains defensively, like the stuff that you're talking about. But again, it's the same thing as I thought it would feel a little bit more uncomfortable for the top six guys to start the year. And
here's what you do with that. If he goes center, if he's not getting his cookies on 5-on-5, then put him on the top unit with Matthews on the power play to try to get him those cookies back. And then you can always move Marner to the second unit, just to keep creating depth. I know. Well,
also he just did get $11 million a year. Like, he's not in a contract season, right? Like,
no. You're in a win now.
Yeah. Like, I get it if it's last year and you're asking him to play center and he's going, hey, how is this going to affect my contract situation? You go, yeah, I mean, there's more upside. That was the discussion, but now you're set financially. He seemed to be bought in, and for whatever reason, it seemed like it was the coaching staff that moved off of it quickly, and then they were talking about things like he's still going to get reps in practice and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I got to figure that this is a scenario where you need the game. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you need hard games.
Yeah.
You need to figure out where you got to be in the middle of the ice. Like, the big thing with center iceman is being in good spots. It's not always skating fast. It's not always being on the puck in the offensive zone. It's being in good spots in the D zone so you can be an outlet. And that takes time to build those patterns. It's a very hard pattern to understand. You need high IQ guys up the middle that understand routes and stuff like that. And if you're just doing it in practice, oh, great, yeah, you've taken a couple reps. That doesn't do anything. You got to get in the D zone. You got to battle against guys who are willing to rip the stick out of your hand. You got to find soft areas on the ice, and that takes 5, 10, 15, 20 games to do. It takes guys years to understand how to do that, let alone like a practice rep in a couple games. Like, you need a lot of road runway in order to do it, to learn those routes again.
So with the other guys, right, like I mentioned that it's 28, and there's basically 3 forwards on the outside that can play in the NHL. I'm a little suspicious of whether or not there is real competition, like if guys are actually fighting for spots, or I should say multiple guys. Like, Liljegren's out. Elliot Friedman reporting the Leafs are looking to try and move him, try to find a landing spot for him. He makes $3 million. It makes sense. I understand some people's positions where they're like, wait, isn't he better than Connor Timmins? Yeah, I actually do think so. But ultimately, the money difference, it doesn't make sense to pay Liljegren $3 million, especially when he ultimately is going to land up being your 7th defenseman at best if Hakanpää's healthy. And I felt like the same yesterday with David Kampf, where he's in the lineup right now, but he doesn't kill. He's not on the penalty kill units yesterday. And you go, ooh, that's a thing, because you're paid 2.4. And that's supposed to be your big thing, is you're a defensive center, and you're not in that role to start the season, which makes me think like you're on the outside looking in, and that they're going to try to move off of a bunch of money and some guys that were brought in by the previous regime, even though they were re-signed by the current one. Do you like that idea of competition? Do you think that's real, that those guys are actually fighting for those jobs? Or in your experience, is it that, hey, the coaching staffs have usually already made up their mind by this time of the year, and it takes quite a significant, quite significant change of play to material impact their minds?
Well, I think they've always got their minds made up to a certain extent, unless a player that is fighting for a position, like you said, drastically changes his play and gets into the coach's good books and does exactly what he wants. So whether it is a David Camp doing exactly what he wants, fighting his way back onto the penalty kill, if not, then of course they're going to have to move off that money. A Liljegren, if he's playing soft and not hard and not doing the things Craig wants, I mean, you got to move off that money as well. The inner competition generally always comes within the bottom half of the lineup. They're fighting for ice time. They're fighting to get into the lineup. They do have a lot of guys that could fight for spots in the lineup, but that just comes down to they got to play their roles to a T in order to get into the coach's good books. Mm-hmm. Thinking about the defense, though, and watching Montreal, I don't think Montreal's a great team, but I was thinking about Toronto's defense. There's just not a lot of mobility on the Toronto blue line. And Liljegren is a mobile D, and it's a guy that I feel that they could use back there. I mean, if you think about Hakanpää coming back in, you got Benoit, who's not mobile, McCabe not mobile, Tanev not super mobile. Like, these guys are all good defenders and play hard and stuff like that. OEL's mobile, but he's not, super quick. And then Morgan Riley, he's probably your best skating D. If Liljegren could get a little bite to his game, that could be a real integral piece to a defensive unit that could help this team a lot. But those are the guys, though, like you said, if you're fighting for positions and you're not doing exactly what a Craig would want, you're just not going to play, and then you got to move off that money. But inner competition definitely is a real thing. You do need the players that are either out of the lineup or lower in the lineup to play above themselves to be able to take spots from guys. So if a Lorentz is going over a Nyes, boom, he moves up, right? And now Nyes, you're on the fourth line. Sorry, kid. If Domi's not going, okay, Pacioretty's going, boom, you move up, right? You have to have some interchangeable pieces that can move up. That's where the competition starts to drive guys. It'll drive guys nuts as well. Like I remember in Chicago, if I'd score 5 points, you'd be on a 4 or 5 point heater, like game heater. All of a sudden I have one bad shift, boom, I'm out, Bickle's in, or Brower's in, or Ladd's in, or someone's in, and they score, right? So that type of inner competition within the depth guys to elevate your horses is a real thing. You do need the depth guys in order to do it, but that type of competition definitely drives the lineup.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I don't know how anybody could listen to that and not agree, or at least not have their minds changed a little bit. Here's the thing with the Liljegren part of it, though. What you said there is true. The mobility, the puck moving, whatever. The fact that he's right-handed. The problem with Liljegren, because I agree, right? And I think everybody agrees. But with Liljegren, it's always if. It's always, if. And I would be a little more reluctant to move him and to be changing up your blue line and losing a guy like that if you hadn't given him a lot of runway as a player. And some people would argue that he'd been yanked from the lineup too soon in some situations, that maybe he didn't get a chance early enough. I don't know, but he's been benched multiple postseasons. He shows up to camp this year, and whether or not it was management already having made a decision going, we need to get off this money, and we just don't, we have Hakanpää and we have Timmins, we got to make it work with that, whatever. He didn't show up and look like he was dying for a spot in the preseason. And maybe he's just not geared that way. Maybe it's just it's preseason. Some guys can't get up for it, whatever. But I can't be overly upset about moving off of a guy like that, even though there is a case to be made that they need a player like him, given that he's already had enough cracks. Like, this isn't year 2 for Liljegren. This isn't, he's such a young player. Give him a shot. He's had his shots. And if it burns you, I don't think it's going to burn you that bad. And I do feel like, okay, this sounds sort of dumb, but if you move him out and it doesn't work with this Hakanpää Timmins thing, or that you do need more of a puck mover, go address that at the deadline, because I don't think that you're going to be missing Liljegren come playoff time anyways. You know what I mean? So you might have to spend more assets to figure out what your blue line is, but ultimately that's probably going to have to be the case anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you said, he's had He's had numerous chances, and if you're coming into camp and your back end is already solid, and then you got some other guys who are playing relatively at your level, and you're not willing to do what it takes, then you got to move off that money, and like you said, at trade deadline, you got to go out and find someone like that who probably has a little more jam, but. Yeah, you can address that at a later date, but to move off that money would be key.
Yeah, I think they gotta. I think that's going to be the plan as of right now is, hey, if you're going to be making that money, you have to be clearly wins above your replacement. And right now for Kampf, you look at Lorentz last night, you look at Dewar last season, and you go, hey, Kampf stays healthy. He's 6'4". He's a serviceable depth centerman, but is he giving you, the above play to justify the extra million? Probably not. So you got to get him out of here. You got to move him out. Hey, same with Timothy Liljegren. Are you better than Connor Timmins? I don't think there is anything really that he does better other than maybe Connor Timmins could run a second power play better, but that's not even something he's going to get to do now because OEL and Riley are going to get those roles. So it doesn't matter. You're not worth $2 million more a season than Connor Timmins, and you're certainly not worth that sitting on the bench. So they got to end up probably moving those two guys out. And then, the other guy, the third, that's going to be the part that gets remain to be seen. Okay, so it's the Keefe Bowl tonight. They got Sheldon Keefe. You got Craig Berube. Do you think? How is this for the players on the team What?
Coach fight.
Oh, coach fight. Yeah. I think Sheldon Keefe would have stayed in Europe if that was part of the deal. He would have just been like, yeah, I'll never return home. I'm going to be Julian Assange. I'll be seeking refuge in a foreign country. So how much do the Leafs, what is this for the Leafs players? Because I know that there's going to be money on the board for the Devils guys. They're going to want to come back and win one for Keefe. He got fired, right? It's different when a guy gets fired than the Leafs where they're the coach. It's a celebratory thing. Like for Berube, it's a celebratory thing. Is it the same? How does it work for the Leafs tonight from a money on the board or motivation standpoint?
I think for the Leafs, there's definitely more external pressure from the media that's going to be asking a lot of questions and stuff like that. From the Devils side, there's definitely going to be money on the board. Mm-hmm. These guys are going to want to win for their coach. They're going to want to show, their coach is the guy. I think from the Leafs side, they're also going to want to go out and prove that, they made the right decision as well. So this is a high stakes game in that case. Does it mean a lot at the end of the day? No. Mm-hmm. But both teams are going to be willing to do whatever it takes. I'm a little worried about the energy levels of the Leafs back-to-back. Start of the season, a lot of your top guys played a lot of top minutes. How much gas in the tank do you have left for your first back-to-back game of the year? Mm-hmm. That's going to be interesting and what remains to be seen. That's why I would like to see the depth spread out, especially in tonight's game. Make your lineup a little bit deeper. Give some guys who didn't get as much ice time some gas tonight. But as guys in the room, I've gone back and played against coaches, either I've played against that have been fired and stuff like that. You generally always want to beat them, and vice versa. They're going to want to beat you. But I think more on the Devils side, you're going to see a team that puts, a lot more money on the board than the Leafs do.
Yeah. I think the Leafs have to go with their backup tonight just because they've got 3 games in 4 nights.
Really?
Well,
you think?
Well, they got 3 and 4, and he's 23, and it might be a bit too soon, but by all accounts, he's been a stud in the AHL for them so far. They really like him. He had a really good preseason. I don't know. I don't think it's as bad as.
No, I don't think it's bad, but I think with Stolarz right now, and if you don't know what you got with Wall, and you don't know if he's going to be, you got to make someone feel important here in the net. Mm-hmm. I think you got to go back to Stolarz and say, hey, man, we're going to give you the first period, see how it goes. If it doesn't go great, we'll get you out and get you some rest. Mm-hmm. That's how I would go with it. I think you really got to make Stolarz right now feel like he's the guy. But, I do understand the rest and all that. I just think you got to be upfront with him about, hey, let's see how the first period goes, see how you're feeling and manage that.
Here's the counter, though. Stolarz has only played 28 games. That's the most he's ever played in his career professionally. He played 39 in I think he played 39 and 40. Let me pull it up. He played 47 in 2016 with the Phantoms. So that's his career high. But in the NHL, he's played, 28, 27. Those are his 2 career highs for games played. You got a back-to-back. You're playing a Devils team that might be able to play a little bit more of a high-octane style of offense than you are right now. If you're doing the whole, you got to make them feel important, I would actually say, like, hey, we need to make sure that you're good to go for Saturday night. Like, we got the Penguins coming up. That seems like a pretty winnable game based on the Penguins last season and how they started their year. Hey, take this night off. I don't want to have Stolars give up 4 goals on the second half of a back-to-back against the Devils in a highly emotional game against Keefe, and all of a sudden he's not feeling as good as he did coming out of Montreal where he was awesome. You know? Like, I just don't want to burn him out.
That's a valid point, too.
Like, that's just what I would do. I'd throw the kid in net, and I would say to the team, like, hey, our whole thing is supposed to be that we're more defensively responsible this year, right? Like you said it. They don't have a ton of puck movers. They're supposed to bang the other team. Ultimately, their style should kind of work against the Devils of, hey, straight lines, hammer them and hem them in their offensive zone, short shifts, and then defensively responsible. Don't let them get inside. Don't let them get a lot of high-danger opportunities and transition opportunities against our young goaltender. And then, you beat the Devils 3-1, 2-0. That's a pretty that's a nice win for you in the beginning of the season, especially if your backup is in net.
Yeah, no, I agree. And looking at Montreal, though, and they're not as good as the Devils, but they kind of play a little bit similar style. They created a ton of grade A chances against the Leafs, I thought, and I didn't think the Leafs played very well in their D zone. I thought they were trying to hit. I thought they were out of position a lot. But if you get caught doing that against the Devils tonight, you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Well, how long do you think it's going to take under Berube for them to start to look tight? Like, when do you get concerned, like, with some of those kinds of mistakes?
Yeah, system changes, play a style change. That definitely takes time. It's going to take time to build. It's going to take time to understand, hey, if you're in this quadrant now as a winger, these are more your guys. So, if they're playing more of a zone defense, or depending on, I haven't really understood what they've done yet fully, but if, like, each responsibility from each coach changes based on each position. So just the reads of the games, that takes a good, it does take 10, 15 games as a team to understand exactly what Craig needs. It wasn't perfect yesterday. It didn't look perfect at all. I know they did get chances for as well, but against the ones they were giving up, it looked like there was some misreads. And again, that just comes from a new system, but that takes time to build.
Yeah. I'm going to try not to be overly reactionary. That's what I'm going to try.
Don't panic. Let's not panic.
I'm not panic. There's no panic. Here's the thing. I can't panic because I don't feel like I have anything to lose. Like, I'm already as beaten down with this team as it can be. Like, it felt so familiar. So you just say, you're at the kind of the point where you shrug your shoulders and you go, yeah, all right. Like, I don't. I
just want to see them do exactly what we said. Like, just spread out the lineup. Yeah. Just see how it works. If you lose, you lose. It's early in the season. Start to get those foundational blocks in place, and you always can go back to the well. If you're down 2-0 in the third, hammer on the gas.
Load it up.
Your boys on.
Yeah, and if you're Berube too, it's, of course you want to make the playoffs. Of course you want to win regular season games, and I think that's actually been one of the fair criticisms of these Leafs teams in the past. Is they've compiled big point totals, but they've never won the Atlantic. They've never put themselves in a position for a more friendly playoff matchup. Like, if you want to bitch and moan about playing the Bruins and the Lightning every season, it's like there is something you can do about that. Like, it's not fait accompli. You can win more games in the regular season. But if you are Berube, it's like, hey man, you're brand new. This is the time where you've got the most leash to be creative. This is the time where you're going to get the biggest grace in terms of trying something new and it resulting in some regular season losses. I actually think the way people are going to be more critical, and not like he cares, but that is going to happen, is if you do try to do the same stuff the other guy did and say it's different, but we look at it and we go, yeah, but it's the same. Like last night.
I would like to understand their roadmap. Yeah. Right? Like, what's your roadmap before the season? Was it, let's get all the top guys going, let's accumulate as many points as possible, and then we'll start to be creative after Christmas once we're coming into playoffs? Yeah. Or is it that's what I'm saying. Like, what was your vision for the season first? Or are you willing to rip that vision up and go with plan B or whatever it is? So that could have been what they're going with. Hey, let's just go with the way that we're going to get and accumulate as many points as possible in a very hard division.
Yeah.
Make sure we're solid and set by Christmas, and then get a little more creative, or are we going to be creative at the start? So,
but that's why the Nylander thing throws me off. And I know I'm beating a dead horse, but it's like, why come out so forcefully with, hey, we want to try him out at C, we think he's a centerman, and Nylander going, I played a lot of center. I played it with the Marlies. It was what I played when I first came up. I want to be a center, but I got to get it time. And then immediately it was just like a total backtrack. It's like, oof, that feels like you didn't have a concrete vision. That feels like it was a little bit more fly by the seat of your pants and switch it up and go, oh, well, actually, no, we'll just put these guys back there. Because frankly, if there's one thing that I really don't need to see any more of, like, it's Nylander and Tavares together. Like, I just don't need it. Like, I don't think anybody does. And God, I hope they end up actually shaking it up tonight and then moving forward, and we can have something that's a little bit refreshing. Because, yesterday felt stale. Yesterday felt very, very much the same thing. And I don't think that's going to be something that people really enjoy or tolerate. Kris, going to be a long season. I'm glad to have you back doing this. Again, thanks for making time, buddy.
Yeah, take care. Hey, one thing.
Yeah.
Is Austin Matthews using the old school tack skates? Did they go to like an old school tack brand? Remember the old Super CCM tack?
But I didn't notice. I didn't notice his style yesterday. That's one for you and your deep dive. You go watch the highlights right now and you report back.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool. It looked like you were wearing the old Mike Medanos. All right.
See you, buddy. Kris Versteeg, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, creator of the CLEVR app, and again, partner with Quench Hydration.